Takže dobrý den, dámy. V letošním roce opět jsme zde v menšině. Pánové a všichni milovníci technologií a produktů Google. Já bych vás tímto ráda přivítala na již druhém ročníku Google Developer Day 2009. A ráda bych řekla, že v tomto roce se vás zde sešlo opravdu velké množství, a to více než 800. Takže my jsme za to velmi rádi a jsme potěšeni, že ta pozornost, kterou Google vlastně věnuje České republice, jakožto zemi, tak je tak trochu deklarována tím vaším zájmem a i odhodláním strávit ten dnešní den s námi a s našimi technologiemi. A možná si pamatujete, z minulého roku jsme dělali takovou rozcvičku, tak pro velký úspěch i v tomto roce ji zopakujeme. Možná s menšími úpravami. Já bych vás teď poprosila, zda byste se mohli protáhnout a vstát, postavit se, odložit notebooky, aby jsme si vás lépe prohlédli. Tak, teď, jestli můžete zašátrat ve svých kapsách a vyndat své mobilní telefony. My nemáme žádnou znělku, takže mobilní telefony, třeba tady ten hezký. A vypnout zvonění, vypnout telefony, prosím. No a když už stojíte, tak se můžete podívat doprava, doleva a třeba se případně seznámit, takový ten první krok udělat k tomu. Objímat se nemusíte, objímat se nemusíte. Tak to je ode mne vše, já vám moc děkuju, doufám, že se budete v následující chvíli velmi bavit. A už vás nebudu dále zdržovat a sem na pódium bych ráda pozvala šéfa českého inženýrského týmu až z Curychu, Honzu Šedivého, který vám také řekne pár slov na úvod. Honzíku?
Tak, já vás všechny také velmi zdravím. Jsem velice rád, jak už říkala Katka, že jste tady v takovém velkém množství. Já jsem sice z Curychu, ale slibuji, že jsem posledním mluvčím, který bude mluvit česky. Po mně už to všechno bude jenom anglicky. A první, co bych vám chtěl sdělit, nebo o co bych se s vámi chtěl podělit, je, že český inženýrský tým, takto situovaný ve Švýcarsku, bude brzo slavit 2. výročí své existence. Celý letošní a loňský rok jsme věnovali zlepšování našich aplikací, zejména na českém trhu. A doufám, že třeba na mapách jste si toho všichni všimli a že vidíte, že se snažíme v České republice našim uživatelům, to jest vám, udělat co největší pokroky, vylepšit naše aplikace tak, jak jen to jde. Celý náš tým se za ten rok rozrostl a doufám, že v tomto trendu budeme pokračovat i v příštím roce. Jsem velice rád, že se vás dnes tady sešlo velké množství a naším cílem je vás nejenom dobře pobavit, ale podělit se s vámi o naše úspěchy a podělit se s vámi o naše nové technologie a pomoci vám v jejich použití. To je ten základní cíl. Druhým naším cílem je, abychom se s vámi pokud možno seznámili, pobavili a abychom se od vás dozvěděli, co byste chtěli, abychom v našich produktech zlepšili, co byste chtěli, abychom do našich produktů přidali. Všechny nás poznáte podle zelených triček a je tady celý český tým a spousta našich dalších kolegů i spolupracovníků. Tento dialog, který jsme začali už loni a celý rok jsme v něm pokračovali, ale letos je vás zde mnohem víc, tak v tom dialogu bychom chtěli pokračovat i nadále. Samozřejmě jistě všichni z vás znáte, že spoustu našich technologií API a dalších informací je na stránkách code.google.com. A v Čechách je to na našem bloku, který dělá tady Filip. A pak máme další naše spolupracovníky a je to především Google Users Group, kteří nám velmi pomáhají a kteří vedou s vámi diskusy. My samozřejmě pomáháme, myslím tím teď inženýrský tým, jak příspěvky do blogu, tak příspěvky do Google Users Group. No a to je tak vše a teď bych vám všem chtěl, nebo všechny bych vás chtěl poprosit, abyste se se neostýchali a pokusili se s námi zahájit dialog v průběhu dnešního dne. No a na závěr bych vám chtěl popřát dobrou zábavu a dobrý den. A následujícím speakerem, teď jsem málem zapomněl. A od teďka už to začne anglicky, všichni slíbili, že budou mluvit pomalu a následujícím speakerem je Tholome.
Thank you, Jan. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? How are you doing? Okay. A warm welcome again. A lot of us at Google worked hard to prepare today, and we're delighted to be here with you in Prague for the full day. We hope you find the sessions interesting and fun, and what we'd like to do with this very first session is give you an update on how the web is doing as a development platform and what we at Google are doing to make it better. So if you look at how fast the web has been evolving, it's amazing. If you thought about the web a few years ago, in most cases you were thinking about it as a place where you'd get information, right? You just go and look things up. And then I'm sure you remember the first time you went on the web, you clicked here and there, and then something happened in the real world with the web. Maybe you just bought something online and it was delivered to your door in the next few days. That was an aha moment, right? Wow, I made something happen. The other big moment that I went through, that I'm sure you went through as well, is when you went to a web page, and instead of being just a page, it actually was a fully functional application. Maybe it was Gmail, or maybe it was Google Maps, or some other sophisticated applications. But really, what used to be just content became about applications. And if you actually try and look at how the web compares as an application development environment, this graph attempts to describe how functionality has been evolving across time. And the black line that you're seeing here is for native applications, the ones that run today on existing operating systems on desktop. And in that space, most of the innovation happened more than 20 years ago. And the truth is, these applications are pretty rich and functional today, but that's not where a lot of the innovation is going on. In contrast, if you look at that blue line, this is what the web as an application development platform is going through. Some of the early innovations that created the web back 10 years ago and more, like HTML or CSS, the DOM, are now safely behind us. But if you look at this curve, most of the innovation that you've seen from Opera, from Firefox, from Chrome, and also on mobile platforms has happened in the past 12, 18, and 24 months. It's just amazing how the web as a platform has caught up in terms of functionality with the desktop environments. Functionality is important, but the other dimension I want to talk about is speed as well. Yes, when something gets 20% faster, your app is better and you'll have more users happier. But when you multiply the speed of execution by 10, like we've done in the past 12 to 18 months for JavaScript, or even 100, which is how much JavaScript execution has sped up between 8-9 years ago when it was first invented and now, this is amazing. What that suddenly means is things that you could not possibly do, could not think about, that were just impossible a year or 2 years ago, suddenly become possible because of speed. So there we are. We have a platform that is reaching parity with desktop environments, but it has intrinsic advantages over the desktop development environments. If you think about it, first from a user standpoint, no one, when you go to a web page like Google Maps, thinks about installs or upgrades. The apps are always there, they just work, and you never have to think about it. That's very different from the desktop environment. It's also available anywhere you are, whether you're at home or at the other side of the planet on an internet cafe, or you're accessing it from a mobile phone. That is unique, and all your apps are there one click away. All your data is there. Also, because this was all built on the internet, collaboration, sharing, and all the good things about information flows in the app are mostly native to the applications, unlike desktop apps. For the enterprise, all what we've said for users applies, but in addition, as an enterprise, if you start putting your data and your applications in the cloud, there's very significant cost savings and other benefits that you get from it. Collaboration is critical in the enterprise. And also, if you're running your business on the internet, you will have much better information and relationships with your partners and your customers and your users. You just have much better understanding of what's going on. Everything is in the logs, and you can find out and drill down on data to know what's going on. And finally, for you as developers, there's a lot of advantages to the web platform as well, right? It's a lot easier to develop and test things out. You have much better feedback. You have very quantitative feedback about what's working, what's not working. All this means that the whole conversation about development platforms and which one's better and which one's going to win is over. As far as we're concerned, the web as a development platform has won. We now have a platform that is reaching parity with desktop environments in terms of functionality and speed, and has intrinsic advantages that just make it a better place. So we've seen that blue line and how fast things have changed in the past year or so. But let's take a closer look at what we mean when we talk about these innovations. And I'm going to use the term HTML5 to talk broadly about this. HTML5 is a standard, and standards are well known for being complex, and some of the things we're going to talk about are in the standard, some of the things are happening outside of the standards, but that doesn't really matter. What really matters is that what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes, and we're just going to drill down in details on some of the capabilities that are coming or have come to browsers thanks to HTML. They're almost there, or they're already there, and they are all open technologies. To do this, I'd like to ask Mark Pilgrim from Google to join me on stage and help me out with demonstrations. Mark.
Thanks, Eric.
So the first one we'd like to talk about is called Canvas. Have you drawn a line on a web page? I'm sure you have. And the way you typically do it is you will actually draw the line on the server and push an image down to the client. Sure, that works, but first that's heavy in terms of bits flowing. Also, that means your interactivity with that line or whatever you're drawing is limited by the granularity of the image tag, which isn't great. Obviously, the other way to do this if you want more interactivity is probably use something like Flash or some alternatives. Sure, but then you're talking plugins, you're talking proprietary technologies, it's not going to work on some of the mobile platforms. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just have pixel level control of the web page and just be able to draw and do things on the page like you would in a native app? That's exactly what the canvas tag in HTML5 gives you. And Mark's going to show you what you can do with this.
So this is a nice little canvas demo. You can move your cursor around. The little balls follow you. You can change modes, draw different things. That's pretty, right? Okay. Hey, it's pretty, it's cute. It's you know, a sort of thing you'd see in Flash, right? Except this is all based on open standards. The canvas gives you, the canvas tag literally gives you a blank canvas to draw on. You draw in JavaScript. Here's a draw background function. It creates a new image, sets a source. Once the image is loaded, it gets the drawing context of the canvas element and calls draw image. Combine that with a bunch of fancy math like you see below, and you can literally draw anything you like on a web page.
The second one we'd like to talk about is video. Video is also hard. If you've tried to use video on your web app, it's difficult. Again, you have to use plugins with all the challenges associated with plugins, as I just said. Why is it hard? We've been using images very easily. Why can't we just use and treat video just like we treat images on the web? Wouldn't it be nice if you had a tag and you could manipulate it as part of the DOM natively in the open stack that we all know and love? That's exactly what's being introduced in HTML5, a video and an audio tags that just behave exactly like you would handle image tags. Again, Mark, give us a sense of how that works.
So this is actually 3 movie trailers playing simultaneously with sound.
Nick and Sean are 2 of the best players in the state.
I'll turn that off for now. Each of the videos is being drawn in a canvas element. The canvas element, in turn, is being rotated, scaled, moved around the screen. You have some underneath each other, some on top of each other. And again, this is all done based on open standards. The video is an object in the DOM. The canvas is an object in the DOM. That means that you can start combining them. Here in JavaScript, you have video get the X and Y coordinates, pass them off to the translate method of the drawing context. You can do translate, rotate, scale, and you can start combining all of these technologies, combining video with Canvas, with CSS, with SVG. All of these are now native to the web.
The third one we'll talk about now is location. Most of the applications that you are working on, that you see on the web, benefit or would benefit from knowing where the user is, assuming the user agrees to that. And it's been hard so far to do that. There's been two reasons why it's hard. One of them is purely the technology to get location information. Up until now, quite often you had to either use GPS, which is very accurate, but only a few phones have GPS, and no desktop typically has GPS. And also GPS is slow, GPS uses a lot of battery, and GPS wouldn't work here indoor. On the other end of the spectrum, you have IP addresses. They're always there, but they're notoriously inaccurate and sometimes very wrong, actually, about the location of the user. Now, what's happened recently is we have a number of databases that have come together. What I'm thinking about are the locations, the information about cell IDs, which are the cell identification of the cellular cells, which you can map to geography, which means you can now actually, based on, for mobile phones, which cell they're seeing, you can find out pretty accurately where the phone is. And for phones and desktop, the same exists in terms of databases for SSIDs, for Wi-Fi identification. So knowing, you're looking at the signals that you're receiving, you can find out a lot more accurately where the user is. And if you combine all the sources of information that you have, you actually now, in most cases, get a pretty accurate sense of where the user is. The other part of using location that was hard is there was just no way to access it from the browser. That got fixed. This is the geolocation API. And now, with a simple call to that API, you can actually find out where the user is and do great things about it. Let's take a look.
So as Eric said, this is one API call. This is Firefox 3.5 shipping version, latest released version. It supports the geolocation API. Here I'm going to click to look up your location, and you'll see at the top it says, it has an info bar that pops up. Such and such site wants to know your location. Share location, don't share, remember for this site. So again, opt-in, privacy issues are obvious, I think, sharing your location with a remote site. But Firefox lets you opt in. I'm going to click share location. Lo and behold, the browser has determined the location. Yeah, that looks pretty close. Within about a mile or so. Close enough. This doesn't have any special GPS. It doesn't have any special. This is just based on IP. But the point is, it's a simple API, and it can be implemented across all platforms. And you can get your location and then do whatever you like with it. Send it off to Google Maps. Use it internally within your own applications.
So we've talked about how web apps are great because they're always connected, and you can have a lot of native functionality from this in terms of sharing and collaboration. But we have to recognize that there are cases where users actually don't have connectivity. Maybe you're in a plane, or maybe you're actually roaming, and even though you could connect, it's just too expensive. Wouldn't it be nice if your application could continue to provide functionality to the user, just like a desktop app would in offline mode? That's exactly why App Cache and database are introduced. With App Cache, you can tell the browser to cache specific parts of your code that you want available offline. It's just like the browser cache, except that you have control over it, so it doesn't time out, and all the code that you want will actually be available when you need it. And database is for the data. You can now store data locally and actually have local availability of your application and its data even when there is no connection to the network. That's great when there is no connection. It's also actually interesting to take advantage of this when there is a connection. If that connection is flaky or slow, think about, again, when you're developing for mobile phones. In that case, that allows you to provide a very fast and responsive UI, just like you would in a desktop world, and actually deal with the network and its latency separately and asynchronously. Mark, do you want to show us a bit of that?
So this is a very simple sticky notes application. You can drag notes around, you can create a new note, move it around, hello from on stage. That data is stored in a local SQL database that is part of the browser, and the entire application can work offline. I can prove that I am offline. Yay, I am offline. Boy, you never hear that too much, do you? And you can reload from the server, and all of your data is still there. I can open it in a separate tab and prove it to you. All of your data is still there. The entire application is still there because the application defines what's called a manifest. And the manifest is very simple. It looks like this. It's a text file. It simply lists all of the resources that are required to use this application, this web application, offline. And so here we have a simple HTML file, a few PNGs, a CSS file, and the JavaScript file. Gmail for mobile phones uses this exact technique, and it works today on the iPhone 3.0 firmware shipping already. So this is live. Google is actually using this.
Isn't that great? Look at the capabilities that we're getting now from browsers. Now, that makes you think about more things you could be doing and more code you could be writing. And what happens when you write more code, as I'm sure you've experienced before, more JavaScript running means at one point you have so much CPU going to the JavaScript code and it's in the same thread as the browser UI that your browser starts to slow down or being unresponsive and the whole UI freezes, which is not good. What would you do in a native application at that point? You'd basically use a background thread, a separate thread where you'd put the computation-intensive code there so that your UI can still remain intensive. Something we couldn't do in the browser world before. Well, now we can. We can, and that's called web workers. And what web workers is exactly that. It's the capability to create a background thread where you can put all your heavy-duty JavaScript so that it runs separately from the browser UI and your UI and the tabs so that your application remains responsive and you can do very computation-intensive processing separately. Again, let's take a look.
So this is a demo. I've shown you a Canvas demo, and I've shown you a video demo which actually combines with Canvas. This is going to add a third piece to the puzzle with web workers and background processing. This is a video which plays on a canvas, and then in real time, in a background thread, we look at the frames of the video and detect motion between each frame. And you'll see someone come onto the frame here, and we're drawing those rectangles, green and red rectangles, around. Those are not part of the source video. Those are being drawn on top of the video, which is playing in the canvas in real time, being calculated in a background thread in JavaScript. Let me show you. This is the source. Again, the video is in the DOM. The canvas is in the DOM. And now we can say this.worker equals new worker. Give it a path to a separate JavaScript file, and that will start a background thread and run that worker in the background in parallel with the primary thread, this tracker.js file. And they can pass messages back and forth. During my HTML5 talk, right after this keynote, I'll actually dive into this code a little further. But they can post messages back and forth and say where you want to draw the rectangle and so forth.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, if someone had told you, say, a year ago that you were going to do full motion detection in real time on video in a browser with purely standard code, I just wouldn't have believed it. It's just fascinating. What's best is that all the demonstrations that Mark just did, they're all done with existing browsers out there, and everything we've talked about and all the rest that is coming with HTML5 is mostly available on all the modern open source browsers that you see on this screen. Again, both on the desktop world and or on the mobile world. Now, at the same time, we recognize that there's a number of users out there that still use Internet Explorer, various versions of that, sometimes because they like it, sometimes because they don't even know that there are other browsers, or sometimes because they're forced to stick to that browser because they're in enterprise and enterprises don't like to change their environments. And that's fine. That's why we introduced recently something called Google Chrome Frame. What Google Chrome Frame is, it's a plugin for Internet Explorer versions 6, 7, and 8 that brings all the good things, all the good open web technologies we've just talked about, as well as Google Chrome Fast V8 JavaScript rendering engine to Internet Explorer. What that means is if as a developer you choose to invoke Google Chrome Frame, now you actually have access to all the good technology we've been talking about, not only in the modern open source browsers, but also in all the different versions of Internet Explorer out there. Mark, let's take a quick look. So this is the demonstration. You remember how we showed it to you in Chrome? Well, now you've got it running in Internet Explorer. And if you just right-click, this is Internet Explorer, and if you right-click, you can see it's been invoking a Chrome Frame. Now that is really exciting. At this point, I'd just like to spend a minute answering a question that might be on your mind, and that is on a lot of people's mind when we talk about the open web and all these technologies. Why is Google involved? Why are we doing all this? Why are we releasing all these open source pieces of code? Well, there's two main reasons why Google does that. We do this first because it's in our DNA. When Larry and Sergey first created the very first versions of Google Search in their dorm room at Stanford University, they were using a bunch of open source code. We also have hired many engineers from the open source community. So for us, using and giving back to the open source community is just fundamentally part of our genes. Also, it actually makes a lot of business sense for us because when we work and improve together with the community, the open web, we get from you guys and all the other developers out there richer web apps. And when we get richer web apps, what that means is the usage of the internet grows. More people come on the internet because it's more interesting and useful, and they use it more because it works better and faster. And guess what? It's mechanical. When people use the internet more, they also use Google Search more, and they click more on ads, and we make more money, which means we can invest further into the open web. So there's a very simple business reason why we're very interested in making the web better. Since we're talking about Google, let's just spend a few more minutes telling you a little bit more about, more generally, what our strategy is for the open web and developers. There's really two parts to it. One of them is just making the web better and more powerful. And some of the things we do in this area that I'll talk just a little bit more in the next minute is Google Chrome, Chrome OS, as well as Android. And then there's another part of our efforts that's focused on tools. We empower you guys with tools that we continuously make better and release. And some of these tools are App Engine, Google Web Toolkit, the Chrome tools, as well as a bunch of APIs. And again, we're just going to go through each of these points now. So, talking about Chrome and Chrome OS. Chrome is a browser that we released a bit more than a year ago. The key focus for us when we released Chrome was speed, simplicity, and security. And we really are doing this to make the web move forward and move faster. And I think what we've seen, the graph, the blue graph that I showed you, how fast things are moving in the web, is a testament to how well this is working and how important it is. It has been a topic to make the web better. But we also hear constantly from users that that's not enough. They keep telling us that their computers should work better. They want access to their applications and data right there, quickly. They shouldn't have to wait minutes to boot. They want their computers to work a year later as fast as it worked the first day they bought it. Doesn't that seem normal? So that's why we announced recently the Google Chrome operating system. What this is our attempt at Google to rethink from the ground up what an operating system should be. And it's based, very much like Chrome, on three fundamental things: speed, simplicity, and security. What it is effectively, it's essentially Google Chrome with a windowing system and a Linux operating system. That's what it is. From a developer's standpoint, it's the same web apps that you are all designing today for the open web will work equally well on Chrome OS. We will be open sourcing Chrome OS before the end of this year, and we expect, working with our OEM partners, that we'll be seeing some netbooks, which is the initial target for Chrome OS, towards the second half of 2010. Let's talk about mobile. If you've noticed, every time I've talked about the web and the platforms, I've always said desktop and mobile. Mobile is growing. It's growing fast. This is a third-party study that shows that in 2009, we're looking at roughly 500 million people using the internet from mobile. And we're talking about real usage. We're not talking about SMS or MMS. We're talking of real usage of the internet in a mobile situation. 5 years from now, these guys are forecasting that more than 1.5 billion people will be using the internet. Okay, this is a forecast. Let me tell you about a data point that we see at Google. The number of searches we get from mobile devices has been multiplied by 5 since 2007. More importantly, today, from this year on, from 2009 on, there's more people that access the internet for the first time from a mobile phone than from a desktop. Think about what that means in terms of the trend and where we're going. If you're not working on mobile, think about it. It's becoming a very important place where people also access the web and web apps. Let's talk about Android for a sec. Android is a full stack for building a phone, and it's an open source stack that manufacturers and operators can use. A year ago, Android was just one device with one carrier. Right now, I'm happy to report that we have 12 devices out there in the field in 26 countries with 32 carriers in 19 different languages. It's amazing the momentum that we're seeing around Android, and it's just going to keep going on with that same sort of trend. We have more than 12,000 applications in the Android market, and the average user downloads about 40 applications. So the ecosystem around Android applications is really working. And Android as a platform is very alive. We've had 5 releases, including 2.0 very recently. Talking about 2.0, it was codenamed Eclair, hence the picture. I won't go through the details of the feature set. I'll just highlight 2 things that matter to you guys. One of them is that you now have the ability in 2.0 to actually create sync components, so you can sync data with other data sources. And also, 2.0 brings great support for the HTML5 capabilities that we've just talked about. So we haven't demonstrated in Android, but there's further talks where you see some of this. It now is a way where you can really deal with mobile applications, mostly the way you deal with desktop applications. All right. We've talked about how we make focus on making the web better and more pervasive and more powerful. Let's now switch gears and talk about what we do in the tools space. And I'll start with App Engine and Google Web Toolkit. And to do this, I'd like to ask Fred Sauer to come on stage and tell us about it.
Hi. Thank you, Mark. So I'd like to start with a question today. When you first open your computers, maybe at home or you open up your laptop, what's the first thing you do? What's the first application that you click on and open? Now, if you're like me, it's probably a web browser. And the web browser is the most important application on my machine, and I hope it's the same for you. And users increasingly, more and more, they expect to access their data in the cloud. They want to be able to access any application on any device, anytime, anywhere. And in fact, thanks to the features of HTML5, users can access powerful web applications such as Gmail while they're online and while they're offline. Now that's something that we wouldn't have thought was possible just a few years ago. So I'm here to talk about 3 projects. Let me just get the clicker. Thank you, Eric. So 3 Google developer products that I'd like to talk about that allow you to build and deploy applications to the cloud in a very scalable way. Now, when we launched Google App Engine for Java earlier this year in April and May, we saw a tremendous uptake in adoption. Over 250,000 developers have deployed their application to Google App Engine. Not one of these developers had to configure, manage, or build a server to get their application running in the cloud. No database licenses or operating system licenses were needed to get started. And each one of these applications enjoys a great amount, or a generous amount of free quota. Every single month, every one of these applications that's deployed on App Engine, if it's well written, it can use up to 5 million page views of free usage each month. And then when you go above and beyond that quota, you only pay for precisely the computing resources that you need. Now, Google App Engine lets you build and deploy really powerful applications. But those applications need equally powerful user interfaces. And for that, I'll talk about in a minute. I want to stay on App Engine here and focus on the rate that we've been evolving the platform. When we last gave you an update at Google I/O, which was in May this year, we just launched Java and many capabilities with that. Since then, we've really listened to your feedback, and we've provided additional functionality. We've provided offline or batch processing capabilities via cron and task queues, and we've given you additional integration points for your applications and for your users via XMPP and incoming email support. And we plan to continue this pace of innovation with upcoming features you see on the roadmap. So let's talk about those really powerful user interfaces. Google Web Toolkit allows you to focus on what you do best, which is building those great user applications. And it does this by making sure you don't have to deal with browser quirks, and it allows you to manage very complex, large-scale projects with multiple developers. Google Web Toolkit enables you to be very productive as a developer by giving you rich Java-based tools, again, to make you productive. Focus on the user. I think you see a theme here. Focus on the user, and all else will follow. So I've talked a little bit about how easy it is, and what I'd like to do is actually now show you how easy it is. So I have here the Eclipse IDE. Many of you probably use this IDE, and it allows you to develop on Mac, on Windows, and on Linux. And I've also installed the Google plugin for Eclipse, which makes it much easier to use Google Web Toolkit and Google App Engine. And I'm going to start the new project wizard. And we're going to create a new project, and we need a name. So how about my favorite city in the world? And then we need a Java package to put it in, and we'll use both Google Web Toolkit and Google App Engine. Now this will create a default project for us. And before we look at the source code for this project, let's just run it and see what happens. Now there you see the development mode starting up. This is the environment that allows you as a developer to debug your application in Java, even though you're writing a web application that is going to be delivered to the user in JavaScript. So there's no need for plugins. You just use the native environment of the browser. Now it's given me a URL that I can test with. So I'm just going to take this URL, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go to a real web browser. This is Firefox, so I can use Firebugs and all those great web development tools you're used to. And I'm now connecting back to the JVM, the Java virtual machine that is running the Java code. And it's running the Java code for my client, so it's the web browser, and it's also running the server code. It's acting as a web server. So I can test the entire environment on the SDKs on my local machine. So here's my starter application. It's asking me for a name. So let me enter in a name. This is UI is written in Google Web Toolkit, and I'm going to send this name to the server. And the server gets my name, Fred, and it replies back, hello, Fred. Well, this is a great application. Let's do something more with this. So let's look at the source code and see how this was built. Now we see a server package. This contains all the Java code that lives on the server. This is code that's translated to bytecode, and this is a simple servlet with a method here, greet server. It takes an input, which is the name, and then it ultimately replies back, hello, and that name. So that's interesting. Now let's look at the client package. And here we see the Java code that, while I'm developing, gets run as Java code. So I can debug it and interact with it, which I'll show you in a moment. And when I compile it and deploy it to end users, it actually gets converted to JavaScript. So users don't have to deal with plugins. And we optimize it for every browser for the best experience. So here is the client code, and lots of Java. And I want to show you this method here at the end, send name to server. This is what I'm interested in. And we see here server response, let's see. Here we invoke the server call, sorry. And here's the text to the server. So what I'm going to do is actually set a breakpoint here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the server. I'm going to set a breakpoint. So we can pause the application just before the message is being sent and just before the message is being returned. So now I'm just going to go back to my web browser, and I'm going to send my name again. And what happens is, you see here, the Eclipse environment is flashing and telling me that it's ready to debug. And now it's paused the application in the client code on this very line where I set the breakpoint. And so I can hover over the variable and see what the current value is. And you see the current value is Fred. And I realize that's not what I wanted. I actually hadn't finished writing the code that I wanted to write. So let me just make a code change right now. And I'm going to save this. And what Eclipse is going to do in the JVM is just going to drop, I've changed this method, so it's going to drop to the top of the method, but the application is still paused. This web browser hasn't done anything. The message is still in flight. It's like I'm a mailman, I've opened the package while it's traveling, and I'm looking at the contents, and I've actually changed it. Now I'm going to resume playback so the message actually gets sent to the server. And now, a moment later, the server gets the message, and the application is again paused. So the browser's still sitting there, waiting for a response. The pop-up hasn't come up. And I can see the input value, and sure enough, I'm now famous. Well, the server doesn't agree with that. We actually want to change this value. Sorry, not so famous. And we can just hit resume. And there we have it. We sent to the server with modified code after we were running, and then the server replied back with a modified variable. So that's a great application that we just developed, but I can only use it here on this machine. And what I really want is for everyone here in the audience to use this application. So what I'm going to do is deploy this to App Engine. Now I need to set up, let's see. Does not like that. This is not supposed to happen. This is where Eric does a little dance and says, no one's ever had trouble with a demo, right?
You've all had to do demonstrations, I'm sure, right? Can anyone raise their hand if they've never had a problem doing a demonstration? Yep. All right, come on stage, come help us. Is that working better now?
Yes, that joke definitely helped.
Great.
So let's see. Yes, much better. Okay, so now I can click here, and I can enter an application ID and version. Let's see. You know what? The joke didn't help quite good enough, but that's easy because my favorite city in the world has multiple ways of spelling it, especially for us foreigners. And what we do, we just create another project. This time, we are using App Engine. You saw me do it. So let's see if this one will deploy. This is looking better. No jokes needed. Fred. Okay. Now, I'm going to hit deploy. And this takes about a minute, 20 seconds, a minute, 30 seconds when I practiced it. And I just want you, while we're doing this, to think about how long it took you last time you built an application to deploy to the cloud. Maybe you had to configure a web server, you had to configure a database server, you had to create a database, you had to create a schema in the database, you had to upload your application to the server. There's a lot of things you had to do before your friends could use that application that you had just built. Now, when you look here at the log below, you see that a number of things are happening. First, the application is being compiled to JavaScript. So the GWT compiler is taking the Java code and translating it to JavaScript so our users can use it without plugins. And then the Google App Engine SDK is bundling up the entire contents of my project into a WAR directory, and it's uploading it to App Engine. And that's what you're seeing right now. Now it's uploaded, and we're just waiting for the App Engine servers to go, and it took them 3 seconds to get the application ready. That seems like a long time. So a minute, 20 seconds, we went from just an application on my desktop to, now we can go to an application in the cloud that can be accessed from anywhere with an internet connection. And there we have our application. We say Fred. And here, running on Google App Engine. Hello, Fred. Now you see the modifications aren't there because I had to create a second project and we had that little mistake, but that's okay. So that's what I wanted to show you, how easy it is to create and deploy web applications in the cloud. Now I'm really curious what you're going to build with these applications, and I hope you tell me about them. So remember, it's any application, any device, anytime, anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. So what we've seen up until now is a lot of great technology, and we've shown a bunch of demos, right, with bouncing balls and things like that. But we actually are doing some serious things with that technology. And at Google right now, we're building a very big application that is extremely relevant to everything we've talked about here. It uses a lot of the HTML5 capabilities that we've talked about. It was built with Google Web Toolkit, and there's no way we could have achieved that application without Google Web Toolkit. It will be deployed on Internet Explorer thanks to Chrome Frame, because there's no way we can make it run without some of these open technologies. And maybe more importantly, it has an amazing set of APIs that I'm sure some of you guys will want to take advantage of. The application I'm talking about is Google Wave, and I'd like to ask Lars Rasmussen, one of the creators of Google Wave, to come on stage and tell us about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for inviting me to your beautiful city to talk a little bit about Wave. I am going to show you a super fast demo, but I want to first call your attention to a much longer demo that we have on YouTube. It's an hour and 20 minutes long. You can find it at wave.google.com, and if you want to really know what Wave is about, this is where you should go. Actually, how many people have had a chance to watch the video? Oh my goodness. Did you watch all of it? Okay, not quite so many. I know it's actually apparently the longest video ever actually watched on the internet. And if I achieve nothing else in my life, at least I have that record. So Google Wave is a communication and collaborations tool. It was built exclusively in Sydney, Australia. I'd like to point this out because a really cool thing about the cloud is you can be anywhere in the world, whether in Prague or in Sydney, and build applications for the entire world. It's a communication and collaboration tool. Email is still the most popular way for us to communicate on the internet. This was the first computer that sent an email about 40 years ago. Here's a small sampling of the thousands of communications applications invented since then that inspired us to build Google Wave. So to contrast the two, email essentially mimics snail mail. The basic metaphor is you write a single message and you send it to one or more recipients. In Wave, by contrast, we start out by defining a wave, which is sort of halfway between a conversation and a document. And then there's just a single shared object. It lives in the cloud. And participating users can go there and manipulate the wave. I'll show you in a very brief demo in a second. Really quickly, I want to point you to 3 URLs. So Wave has 3 aspects to it. It's a product. I'll demo it in a second. You can go and check it out at wave.google.com. I believe we gave all of you guys accounts, so you should be able to go there. It's also a platform, and the reason we're here is to try and encourage you guys to write applications, extensions on top of Wave. I'll show you a few examples. But it's also a protocol. So we've opened up the protocol that underlies Wave, and we're actively encouraging other organizations to build their own Wave servers and make it so that they interact with ours. And I'll see, I probably won't have time to show you a demo of that, but there is a couple of sessions that my team members are going to do later today where we can talk more about that. Now, it's been said that Google Wave is complicated, difficult to understand. I completely disagree, of course. And luckily someone, I don't know who it is, put up a website called Easier to Understand Than Google Wave to prove to the world by having people vote. Oh boy, I wish there was an internet. There we go. To have people vote on how much simpler Google Wave is. For example, than the Chinese telegraph code here. I'm going to quickly vote for Google Wave. And you'll see how it's simpler than the Sonnenschein-Mantel-Debreu theorem. Is much simpler than Scientology. Apparently metaphysics is more simple than Google Wave. If you guys want, you can all go here and vote for Google Wave. I mean, vote for the thing. Oh man, much simpler than Google Wave. This is a favorite site of mine by now, as you can tell. Now, luckily, we have by now, we're in a preview stage, and we have actually several 100,000 active users, and some of them very kindly helped us explain how simple Google Wave is. And so here's a video. I can't actually play the whole thing because the language is kind of dicey in here. But if you're into that kind of language, go check it out. It's called Google Wave Fiction, and it's a user who showed you how to reenact a little piece of a movie. Can we have the sound, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration? I didn't mean to do that.
I'm going to try and stop it before the language gets too bad.
You were saying something about best intentions? What's the matter? Oh, you were finished. Oh, well, allow me to retort. What does Marcellus Wallace look like? What? What country you from? What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English and what? What? English, motherfucker! Do you speak it? Yes. Then you know what I'm saying.
Stop.
Describe.
Sorry about that. So if you can handle language like that, do go and check the rest out. Thank you. See how simple it is? Nothing complicated going on here. Let me show you a really quick demo for people that haven't had a chance to watch our long video. I'm going to start a new wave here, and I'm going to type the title in the first line here. Panic time. You also get to see just how bad a speller I am. Hey Andrew, oh dear. I only have 10 minutes to demo in Prague. I have never done it in less than 1 hour. What are we gonna do? Help Lars. Oops, that was wrong. I'm gonna add Andrew to this wave here. Andrew, actually give my colleagues a hand here. We've got Andrew and Vadim and David sitting down there. They're gonna help me. Give my colleagues a hand. Thank you. So Andrew, we're pretending is offline right now, and a little while later he comes online. He sees his wave waiting for him, and now he's gonna make, just like an email, a reply down at the bottom. Actually, I'm gonna just switch to my inbox so you can see what happens. Pretend I'm also offline, and then a little while later, I come back, and you'll see that this wave here now says it has one unread message, and I can go in, and it opens right up where Andrew says, don't worry too much, we'll work something out. We always do. So I want to show you now how in Wave you can switch seamlessly back and forward between email type conversations and instant messaging type conversations. So now Andrew and I happen to be online at the same time, and I can go but, like this. And now you'll see when Andrew replies, I get to see it right away. He says, are your pants, excuse me, what? Come on, you're supposed to make me less nervous, not more nervous. Okay, so you saw we can switch back and forth, and you also saw that I could see what Andrew was typing character by character. We do this to speed up the conversation. In general, you can predict what I'm going to say before I'm done with all the words in the sentence, and by showing you what we're typing, you can do the same in here, and it gets a lot faster. In Wave, you can add a message anywhere in the tree here, including inside an existing message. So Andrew is going to make what we call an inline reply up inside, as you can see there, my original message. He says, let's make a plan, and I'll reply. You could continue this thread here, better hurry, like this. And so that's email versus instant messaging conversation. In Wave, we let you edit your own messages after the fact, which is really useful when you spell as poorly as I do. But we also let people edit each other's messages, which has a very nice effect that you can collaborate on content inside a message. So let me add some more people. I'm going to add Vadim. I'm going to add David. And then we're all going to go and edit this top message here to write a quick little demo script. I'm going to edit like this. And you'll see that Andrew is already there. I'm going to start here, make panic wave like this, email versus chat conversation. And now you can see there's actually now 3 of us in here editing at the same time. And if it looks chaotic, that's how it normally starts out. But you'll notice apart from hours and hours of fun chasing each other around, it's actually really useful. You'll be surprised how fast you can put together content once you get used to using it. Let's see what else is here. They want me to do playback now. Let me show you playback. You click this button here, and now you get to see, and this is particularly useful when you come to a wave after some time. You get to see how the wave was created step by step, like this. And you'll see in a second when we come to the edits here that we keep track character by character exactly of who said what, which is why it's safe for us to let it be the default and anyone can edit anything. What's next? In the script here, playback, drag and drop. Yes, I want to show you how easy it is to add photos. I've luckily got some entirely unrelated photos sitting on my desktop here, and I'll just grab them. This is a drag from the desktop into the browser like this, and you'll see how we create thumbnails and send them on the wire automatically. And I'll show in a second here, David's going to add his own so you can see how fast it is. He's been studying his languages like this, and now he's dragging and dropping, and you'll see that actually show up really, really fast because we create the thumbnail using these HTML5 things that we've been talking about on his browser and send them across the wire while he's uploading the images. Now I want to show you that I can go into a slideshow mode here to view all of the images in the wave, and you'll see that there is my own here, and the much prettier ones from David. And so you can see how in a wave you can collaborate on text, you can collaborate on putting together a photo album, and I'll show you with the extension APIs that you can collaborate on pretty much anything. And so let me just quickly switch over and show you some extensions. So a little bit later today, Vadim, wave at people, Vadim over here, he's going to give an hour-long session that goes into the details about these APIs. I want to just really quickly show you a few examples of what you can build. And I'll show you one that we built first. I'll just make sure you can see what I'm typing here. This is a demo we call the bean soup demo. Can I have some bean soup? It has been too long. Now, unfortunately, Eric only has one joke when demos break, so I'm on my own right now. I guess that didn't work. I could just pretend that it did. So what was supposed to happen here? We have a robot, we call it, which is a server-side extension that can participate in waves just like humans can. And if it hadn't died on me, it would be sitting there and watching me type, and it would actually figure out these 2 spelling mistakes and inject the errors in there. Oh well, I'll show you that later. We better go back to the script and pretend like nothing happened. Okay, what does the script say? Play Sudoku. Excellent, my favorite pastime. I'm going to start a new message here. And then notice up here, there are these buttons here. These are actually inserted into our client by third-party extensions that you guys can build. And this one in particular, if I click it, it adds a Sudoku gadget to the Wave. And you'll see this is built by an Israeli company called Lab Pixies. They actually had a Sudoku gadget already, where you played with yourself against the clock. And so in just a few weeks of work, they integrated that same gadget with Wave, and that makes it collaborative. You can see that these guys are now running around, move around a little bit so they can see it. These are my 3 colleagues here playing Sudoku against each other. It was actually meant to be collaborative, but somehow it turned competitive. And so they're actually now chasing around. You can see their scores up at the top right. The way it works is this. Before, the gadget stored its state in memory. And now it stores its state in the XML of the Wave. And then the Wave platform automatically transmits that to all the other clients, takes care of conflict resolutions, and calls back your gadget when the state has changed. And that's really all you need to build things like this. David is winning by far. Andy, is there something wrong with your internet? I'm just kidding. Okay, I'm just checking the time here. We've got a few more minutes. I want you to go, when you have a chance, go look at a page called Featured Extensions, Google Wave Featured Extensions, that shows just a handful of our favorites. There's many more coming. The Sudoku game, telephone conferencing gadget, a weather gadget. We build a maps gadget ourselves. I want to show you some really meaty prototypes that, that companies have started to build on top of Wave. So here's an application built by SAP, one of the world's largest software houses. I thought I would never say these words, but it's a business process modeling tool that's sexy. Yeah, so they had this UI already where you could draw business processes that would then turn into websites eventually. But by putting this UI inside of Wave and integrating it using the Wave APIs, now you can have many people collaborate in real time on building this business process here. If you go check out the video, it goes through a scenario of a bank and an insurance company. They've merged, and now they're trying to work out their new business processes. And they keep adding more people to the Wave that have more and more expertise. In the end, the manager actually checks the progress from her iPhone. And then, in the end, they can export the work into this enormous software package SAP has, where they can turn this graph that they've collaborated in into an actual website interacting with their customers according to this process here. And then it's not in the video, but since then they build another gadget that goes into the same Wave where you can then monitor in real time the workings of the website. And then you can go and fill with the graph, re-export it, have the website updated, and see how it now performs. Very, very tight loop. This is, again, a prototype. SAP has actually already started doing pilots with some of their customers. We think this sort of application could have Google Wave have a really big impact in enterprises, at least if people don't spend all day playing Sudoku. I'll show you real quickly. I have just a few more minutes. Here's another example that just got announced yesterday. An American company called ThoughtWorks has a project management tool called Mingle. It's particular for agile software development. And just yesterday, they showed at a conference in the US called Enterprise 2.0, a really nice integration between Mingle and Google Wave. So this is Mingle. You have these cards that describe tasks, and you can move them around and organize them inside the Mingle tool. And then in a little while, the video goes and shows how from inside of Wave, just fast forward here, from inside of Wave, this is a Wave that has a robot on it. So a server-side participant that goes and grabs your tasks from the Mingle database and puts them in a Wave so that you get your daily task inside a Wave. And then this programmer here gets a wave from his manager saying, hey, what's going on with this task here? And then the programmer just quickly looks up by typing, he types #88. And now because there's a robot on the Wave, the robot sees that, goes and grabs that task from the Mingle database and throws it right in here. And you can actually now manipulate the task right here, and it gets synced up with the Mingle database. Now the manager asks, is it going to be done in time? And the programmer thinks quickly on his feet, comes up with a new task that excuses why it's not working. And now he can actually, from inside of Wave, create a new task over in Mingle by just selecting the words here. You'll see him do it in a second. He selects the words of the task, and then he goes and clicks a button on the editor toolbar that the Mingle extension has installed. And then the robot on the Wave sees that happening, goes and creates a new task over in Mingle, and puts that task right inside the Wave here. And so you get to really have a tight integration between your collaboration tool and your Mingle database. And that's all the time I have for demos. Like I said, I'm hoping that you guys will be interested in building some of these things. Vadim is going to give his presentation later. I want to say just a few words about money. If you look at the Sudoku game, we allow currently just a single way of monetizing directly, which is to put ads inside of your gadgets. Okay. Do you have any more jokes on my demos, Phil?
I'll run out.
Okay, there's supposed to be ads there, right? And so they happen to be Google ads, but they don't have to be. But we've also been asked a lot by developers that are working with this if we couldn't build a marketplace where we could help you guys sell your extensions to our users, and maybe we could do a revenue sharing thing so that Google could also make money. I'm not ready to promise that we're going to do something like this, but I do think we'd be pretty stupid if we didn't, and we aren't. So there. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. Go see Vadim's talk later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lars. Last thing we want to talk about today very briefly is all the APIs that we provide. There's a bunch, there's more than 60 out there, and we see them and you see them, I'm sure, on many sites. You might be using some of them. We actually crossed a few months ago the mark of 4 billion calls to our APIs every day, so there's really a lot of traffic there. There's no way we can talk about all of them right now. There's a few sessions during the day where you can learn more about some of these. But just to make sure we give you a sample, a preview, in case you're not familiar with them, we thought we'd just talk about one of them, and I'd like to ask Chewy to join us on stage to talk about it.
Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Okay, I'm going to talk, can I have, not that, but this, there we go, about Google Custom Search Engine. I originally had 3 minutes, but we're running low on time, and Kateřina's told me I've got more like 30 seconds. So I'm going to condense it. First of all, who likes Google Search? Yes, okay, that's good. Who has a hobby? Yeah, okay, lots of people have a hobby. And who likes money? Okay, Google's custom search engine is for you. The way to find it, search for Google Custom Search Engine. Pretty easy. Fortunately, or at least it was this morning, it was the first result. Is this where the internet fails us entirely? Oh, even better, it goes straight there. Google Custom Search Engine. Oh, it's because we're in Firefox. Lars, I know it's Mark's account. I'm going to create you a custom search engine. Hope that's okay. The idea is people have interests, they have knowledge, they have websites of their own, and they might have websites that they know about. My hobby, video games. So I'm going to create a custom search engine very quickly about that. You can put in a description there. I'm not going to bother typing one now. I'm going to use English so that I understand what I'm doing, but you'll see that Czech is also supported along with a host of other languages. I want to search only sites that I select. And I happen to know that Eurogamer.net and GameSpot.com are both pretty good sites for video game information. I then select an edition that I'd like, standard or business. I'm going to stick with standard so that I can add run ads. I've read and agreed to the terms of service. I recommend you do that before you click this button. And then you'll get a chance to preview. I'm not going to send Mark an email. I'm just going to hit finish. And then you'll see a bunch of different search engines. I'm going to go to the video games control panel, and you'll see some options down the side here. I can click on sites to edit the sites that I'm editing. I can click on preview, and then I can actually run some searches. So I'm going to type in Brutal Legend. Has anyone played that? I played it over the weekend. It's awesome. You should pick it up. You can see that it's returning results from the 2 sites that I've mentioned. And if I had more time, I'd add in more sites to this list. Or perhaps just wait sites, so that they were coming primarily from these, but also from across the web. Also, we've just launched custom look and feel. So I can actually personalize these results. I'm going to pick bubblegum, because obviously bubblegum's pretty cool. I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to test out my search down here. I'm going to do Brutal Legend again, hit return. And you'll see that it's colored these results. I don't know if it's come up. Well, it's kind of come up okay. You can see pink and blue and a little bit of pink there. And you can also go in and hack the CSS and a little bit of JavaScript. There's an API if you want to play more. Now, to embed this onto your website, you simply click Get Code. And just like a YouTube video, cut, paste, drop onto your website. That's it. Now, how do you make money? Well, that's the most important bit. You click the Make Money tab. Really easy. Apparently, Mark's already making money with his setup, but there'll be a wizard here that if you don't have an AdSense account already, it'll talk you through how to set that up. And if you do, it'll give you instructions on how to link them together. Then all you do is paste the code onto your site, and as people search, if they're clicking on some of the ads associated with those searches, you'll start to make money. So it's a great way for you to share your knowledge about what sites make sense within a particular area and kind of benefit from that knowledge too. I'm going to be talking more about that in my session at 2 o'clock, so if you want to go into a slightly deeper dive, you can do that, or just corner me in the corridor if you see me. Eric.
Thank you, Chewy, and this is a great segue. We've talked a lot about technology this morning, but Chewy mentioned money, and at the end of the day, it matters as well. So we thought after talking about technology, we'd get a perspective about how all these new things that we've just talked about are going to impact your business and business in general, and what's going to happen. And for this, we invited a guest speaker. He's probably most well-known to many of you for being the founder of NetBeans, a company that he ended up selling to Sun Microsystems. More recently, he's created Good Data, a company focused on business intelligence. Please, let's give a warm welcome to Roman Staniek.
Excellent, thank you. Can I get it? Oh, this one. Very good. Dobrý den, dobré ráno. Good morning. I'm gonna speak English because this keynote is all in English, so I'm gonna do the same. So, who am I? I'm Roman Stanek, but my first name is sometimes too difficult for people at Starbucks, so I renamed myself to Stan when I order coffee. I'm a technologist. I invest in companies. I started companies. I built NetBeans, Systinet, Good Data. I blog. You can follow me on romanstanek.org, and I'm obviously Czech. I live most of my time that I spend in the office, I spend online. These days, you cannot be an entrepreneur without actually being visible. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, as I said, I'm on a blog. And you can follow me at Roman Stanek. I'm not gonna comment that comment. When I was working on this presentation, I realized that 15 years ago, the chance of anybody of us ever starting a company, global company, was exactly zero. We didn't have access to internet, it was very limiting, and my first company, NetBeans, in 1997 was the first time somebody could create a global company from Prague. And nobody believed us. I have some Systinet co-founders here in the audience, and people thought we are crazy, that somebody would actually create a Java company in Prague. And to give you some perspective, Java was so slow. Our fastest computers then had 100 megahertz, and we have 32 kilobit line, shared line into our office. 5 years ago, I started a company called Systinet, and we built some core web services standards here in Prague, and we had much faster LAN, and everything was much easier, but it got so much better at Good Data, and that's kind of the cloud experience. That's what I'm going to talk about today. So Good Data is a business intelligence startup. We have 4 competitors: IBM, Microsoft, SAP, and Oracle. And I believe that, with cloud we can actually do it. That the same way at NetBeans, we had competitors like Symantec and Borland, and look at where they are today. So when I look at cloud, 2 years ago, I met people who said that's the best thing in the world. You have to be in cloud. I also met people who said, well, this is the stupidest idea ever. And but I believe that cloud is actually something that would allow all of us to start completely different types of companies, and I'm going to talk about it now. So basic decision 2 years ago when we started Good Data was, are we going to innovate, Or are we going to leverage somebody else's technology? And with the cloud, we can actually do both at the same time. So we can actually use somebody else's cloud to get the leverage against IBM and Oracle, but we can also innovate and be small and nimble and very competitive. So we have processing power. We can actually, do stuff that was not possible in BI only 5 years ago. We have elastic scale, and I'm going to talk about it. We can do multi-tenant systems. Doing one BI project is hard. We do thousands of them on multi-tenant system at the same time in one version of the software. So our complexity is 1,000 times bigger than what Oracle and SAP ever experienced. And we have massive loads, and we have actually, very nice architecture how to solve that problem. So when you start a startup, you have to change the game. And one of the things that cloud allows us is to actually change the economics of the game, how people spend money, how people actually make money. And startups in the cloud help the cloud helps startups to save money on infrastructure. You saw just a presentation of App Engine, and that actually saves tons of money because you get all of those free calls, and it also saves money on infrastructure labor, all of the people who would actually have to manage that. No capex. I'm not going to go into details. I will speak about it. I have a presentation later today, so I will speak about what this means. So I'm not going to go into this point, but just the message is your VCs or people who fund you will actually have to give you much less money because of the cloud. And there is unpredictable load. And if you want a good example why to use something like App Engine, here is one chart for you that actually shows you our load on our systems over the last 3 months when we had one article in TechCrunch. Imagine that you run your computers and you design the load for the first half of the picture. You have no chance to scale up the same day that Mike Arrington write the article. And if you actually buy enough computers for that spike, the following day you can throw them away because you don't need them. So using something like cloud to give you that elasticity, being able to serve 2 users one day, 10,000 users next day, and 4,000 the following day, that's the benefit of cloud. So companies can be started much earlier. You need much less money. You don't need to spend money on hardware and so on. The big bets, my bet is big, but it's not as big as used to be. It's much easier for startups to adapt. One day use this technology, the next day use something else. It's all very elastic, and it's very much level playing field. Anybody in this audience can start a company and beat the big guys because you have the cloud behind you. So what we do, it's a cloud BI. Think about it as a developer's tool for BI, people who want to understand data, analyze data. We think about it as Flickr for data. And over the last 2 years, we built it into a global company with development here in Prague, management in San Francisco, in Boston, and testing in Vietnam. And it's funded by Mark Andreessen, Tim O'Reilly is on our board. So all of this is possible just because of the cloud and many of the technologies that you saw in the presentation today. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was inspiring. Folks, make no mistake, the computing industry has gone through a number of revolutions, from mainframes to minis to desktop. And what we're talking about here today is the latest. The web as a development platform has won. We have the businesses, the ecosystems, the tools, the technologies, they're all there to make it happen. And now it's really up to you to take advantage of this amazing opportunity. Thank you and have a great day.